All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Salesforce Data Cloud. We're going to be breaking down a recent tutorial video. It's aimed at Salesforce users, shows them how to use Data Cloud to build these cool automated
They
workflows.
call them flows.
Yeah, flows, right. So for anyone who's, not super familiar with Data Cloud.
You can basically think of it as like this central hub for all your customer data.
Mhm.
It pulls everything together in one place, which is, kind of crucial these days if you really want to
Yeah.
create those personalized experiences that customers expect.
For sure, yeah. Everyone's talking about personalization these days, and this tutorial uses a hotel example to show how it works. So imagine you're a hotel, right? And you want to make sure your most loyal guests, like your
Yeah.
gold and platinum members, they get like immediate attention if they happen to leave a
Mm.
not so great review. Well, this flow, that's what it does. It takes care of that automatically.
Yeah, it's a really cool use case. So the flow gets triggered when a guest leaves a review, 4 stars or less. But what's really interesting is it doesn't stop there, right? It goes beyond just looking at that one data point. It pulls in all sorts of other information about the guest, their contact details, their loyalty level, even past experiences at the hotel.
Oh, wow. So it's like it's building this complete holistic view of the guest. What's the thinking behind that? Why grab all that extra info?
Well, think about it. The more you know about the guest,
Yeah,
the better you can respond to them.
right.
In this case, the hotel wants to prioritize their high-value guests. So if the flow sees that, oh, this unhappy reviewer, they're a gold or platinum member, boom, it automatically creates a high-priority task for a specific employee.
Ah, okay, so it's kind of like a VIP alert system.
Oh.
But what about the other guests, the ones who aren't, at that top tier? Do they just get ignored? Not necessarily. The flow can be designed to handle different tiers of guests differently. So maybe for lower tier members, it automatically sends like a generic apology email. But for the higher tiers, yeah, it triggers that more personalized, high priority task.
Gotcha. So it can automate tasks based on those loyalty levels.
Yeah.
What else can it do? What other kinds of things can it automate?
Oh, the possibilities are really endless. For example, you could set it up to look at specific keywords in the review. So let's say a guest mentions a broken shower, right? The flow could automatically route that task to the maintenance team. Whereas a complaint about slow service, that could go straight to the front desk manager.
Whoa, hold on. That's getting pretty advanced. It's almost like the flow is starting to understand what the reviews are actually saying, not just the star rating.
Yeah, and that's the real power of Data Cloud. It's not just about collecting data, it's about using it in a smart way. You can create these systems that are super responsive and proactive. The hotel staff doesn't have to waste time reading every single review and trying to figure out what to do. Yeah, that makes sense. So the system does all the heavy lifting for them,
Exactly. It frees up the staff to focus on actually solving the problem.
which is a huge time saver, especially for a big hotel.
It is, and it also makes everything way more consistent.
Mhm.
So every guest with a similar issue gets the same level of attention. It doesn't matter which employee happens to see their review first.
That consistency is really important. Okay, so we've seen how this flow can prioritize tasks, route them to the right people, and even react to specific keywords. Anything else it can do? What happens next?
Well, the flow then creates a task with all the details about the guest and the review itself. And it gets even better.
Right.
Using something called a text template, the flow actually writes out a message that summarizes everything for the employee.
Okay, so instead of just getting a notification that says, hey, this person left a bad review,
Hmm.
the employee gets like a nicely formatted summary with all the important information.
Exactly. It pulls together the guest's name, their loyalty level,
Yeah.
the specific issue they mentioned, everything. And that's a really crucial detail because it allows the employee to immediately grasp the situation. They don't have to go hunting for information. They can jump right into problem-solving mode.
Right, so no more wasting time clicking through different systems.
Exactly. And that's where the personalization really shines. With all that information at their fingertips, the employee can tailor their response to the individual guest.
It makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like this could lead to much more thoughtful and effective resolutions. But I'm curious, wouldn't this kind of automation, take away from the personal touch? Like, wouldn't it make the customer service feel less human?
That's a great question, and it's definitely something to be mindful of. But I think the key is to think of automation as a way to enhance the human element, not replace it.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about it this way, right? The flow handles all the repetitive tasks, like gathering data and prioritizing issues. That frees up the employee to focus on what humans do best: empathizing with the guest, understanding their needs, coming up with creative solutions.
So it's about finding that balance between efficiency and that human touch.
Exactly. It's about empowering employees to deliver exceptional service.
So ultimately, this flow is using automation to make customer service better, more efficient, and yeah, maybe even more human.
Precisely. And that's what makes this such a compelling use case. It shows how Data Cloud can be used to create these truly personalized, meaningful experiences. It's not just about automating tasks, it's about building stronger relationships with your customers.
Wow, yeah, I'm definitely seeing the appeal of this kind of technology. Okay, so we've seen how this flow gathers all this information, creates tasks, routes them to the right people, even sets deadlines. What happens next? How do we make sure the task actually gets done? Does it just disappear into the void?
No, definitely not. The flow doesn't just create a task and then forget about it. It actually it makes sure that task goes to the right person with the right level of urgency.
So it's like a built-in task manager or something. What kind of details are we talking about here?
Exactly. So the flow can automatically assign the task, set a due date, and even give it a priority level. And it's all based on the data it's already pulled in, right?
So like in our hotel example, if it's a gold or platinum guest, it would probably send that task to, I don't know, a senior member of the guest services team or something.
Right. And it would probably mark it as high priority too. It could even look at the guest's past history, like if they've always had good experiences before. The flow might flag the task as super urgent. You don't want to risk damaging that relationship, right?
Wow, that's pretty smart. Okay, so we've got assigning the task, setting a priority. What about the due date?
Yeah, the due date. The flow can customize that too, based on the situation. So for a negative review from a loyalty program member, maybe the due date is set to 24 hours. You want a quick response for those high-value guests.
Makes sense. Okay, so assigning, prioritizing, setting a due date, anything else the flow does to make sure that task gets handled.
Well, the cool thing about these flows is you can really tailor them to your specific needs, right? So, for example, you could set it up to send a notification to a manager if a high-priority task isn't completed by the due date.
Ah, so it's like a safety net. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, you don't want anything slipping through the cracks.
It sounds like this could be really valuable for businesses, not just for improving customer service, but also for keeping employees accountable.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this more than just a technical tool, right? It's really about creating a culture of customer centricity.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've built this amazing flow. It's gathering all this data, creating tasks, routing them to the right people, setting deadlines. What's the next step? Do we just set it loose and hope for the best?
Well, not quite. Before you activate any flow, it's super important to test it. The tutorial actually shows you how to use a debug feature. It lets you run the flow with sample data. That way you can make sure everything's working the way it should.
Yeah, that's a good point. I can imagine how frustrating it would be to launch a flow and then realize it's not working, right?
Exactly. So it's better to catch those errors early on,
Before they affect your customers.
right? And once you've tested everything and you're confident it's working, then you can activate the flow and let it do its thing.
So it's like a soft launch. You test it out, make sure everything's good, and then you flip the switch.
Exactly. And from then on, every time a guest leaves a negative review, the flow takes care of everything.
Okay, so we've covered the whole process, from the initial trigger to the final task. But before we move on, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, the potential downside of automation. Do you think there's a risk that we lose that personal touch if we rely too much on systems like this?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. But again, I think the key here is to use automation to enhance human interaction, not replace it.
So how do we do that?
By automating those repetitive tasks,
Hmm.
like gathering data, creating tasks, that kind of thing. That gives employees more time to focus on the things that require a human touch. Things like building relationships, empathizing with customers, really understanding their
It was
needs.
about finding the right balance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Using automation where it makes sense, but always remembering that the human connection is still important.
Okay, that makes sense.
Think about it this way. Would you rather have a hotel employee spending hours reading through reviews and manually creating tasks? Or would you rather have them spending that time interacting with guests and making them feel valued?
Yeah, I think the answer is pretty clear. You want your employees focused on the human side of things.
Exactly. And automation can help make that happen.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technical details of this flow and how it works, but let's zoom out for a minute. What does this all tell us about the bigger picture of customer experience?
Yeah.
Are we headed towards a future where everything is automated?
I don't think so. It's not about automating everything. It's about automating the things that can be automated so that humans can focus on the things that can't. This hotel example, it's just a small taste of what's possible when you start using data to create these really personalized customer experiences.
So it's not about replacing humans with robots. It's about using technology to help humans do what they do best.
Right. And as technology keeps getting better, we're going to see even more opportunities to use data and automation to create these amazing experiences for customers.
It's an exciting time to be working in this field. Okay, so we've talked a lot about hotels, but I know you have experience with other industries too. What are some other ways that businesses are using data and automation to improve the customer experience?
Oh, yeah, tons. One that comes to mind is e-commerce. Online retailers have so much data, it's incredible. Browsing history, purchase patterns, abandoned carts, product reviews, I mean, you name it, they've got it.
Yeah, they really do. So much potential there for, personalization. Okay, let's get creative for a second. If we were building a flow for an online retailer, what kind of scenario could we tackle?
Let's see. Let's say a customer adds a high-ticket item to their cart, like I don't know, a designer handbag or something. But then they abandon the cart without buying it. That's a classic problem for online retailers.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Perfect opportunity for a flow to, bring that customer back.
Okay, I like it. So the trigger is an abandoned cart with a high-value item. What happens next?
Well, instead of just sending a generic email like, hey, you forgot something in your cart, the flow could personalize the message based on the customer's past behavior, their preferences.
Right, so if this customer usually buys designer stuff like bags or accessories, the email could show them like new arrivals or special deals on those kinds of products.
Exactly. And if they've left good reviews for certain brands in the past, the flow could even include testimonials from other customers or style recommendations featuring those brands.
Oh, that's clever. It's not just reminding them about the item, it's giving them a reason to come back.
Right. And we can't forget about loyalty programs. If they're a member, offer them bonus points or a discount to complete the purchase.
That always helps. It's all about those little touches, making them feel valued.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, ready for this? What if we brought in external data sources?
Ooh, like what?
Think social media trends, weather data, that kind of thing. Let's say the customer lives in a place where it's about to get really hot. The flow could recommend summer outfits or swimwear to go with that handbag.
Now that's thinking outside the box. It's like the retailer knows what they want before they even know it themselves.
And that's the beauty of this, right? Combining data, automation, and a bit of creativity. You can build experiences that are super personalized and actually helpful for the customer.
This has been a really interesting deep dive. We started by looking at a simple flow, and now we're talking about all these crazy, innovative ways to use data to build these amazing customer experiences.
And the best part is, we're really just scratching the surface here. As technology gets even better and businesses get smarter about using data, I mean, the possibilities are just endless.
I couldn't agree more. So before we wrap up, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think it's this. Data isn't just numbers and statistics. It's the key to understanding your customers and building those meaningful, memorable experiences that keep them coming back.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Salesforce Data Cloud. Until next time, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and see you all later.